All right, we are back again with the Week 6 recap. And once again, I'm Ian, and joining me is my co host Justin.
Hello, everyone.
Yep. And sorry, I got the Week 6 one out a little late. Should be coming out like a day or two before this. But we're actually going to be on time with this one, hopefully. So, let's get right into it, Justin. We got a lot to talk about today. Um,
hmm
so we'll start right off with what happened last week, and we have a very odd spread of stuff, Justin here. So I guess I'll list out
Yeah.
exactly what happened. We have
Yeah.
Vincent losing to Josh, Zach losing to Ethan, me losing to David, Justin winning against Chris, Aiden winning against Roman, Kyler losing to Alex, Titus losing to Caden, and Hunter beating Jacob. What a week!
Definitely.
Lots of upsets.
Yes.
And more importantly, somehow, in week 7, going into week 7, we have a whole 0 teams both in the playoffs and eliminated from the playoffs.
I mean,
Technically.
it's just, it's absolutely incredible. You love to see it. It's better for the health of the league when this many teams are still having to fight to get into that playoff spot. Um, some people enjoy the meme teams, which I think we will see on the last week because I think this week a couple of teams are going to be able to, stamp their way into a playoff contention. Um, but
Or
it's
get
it's
stamped out of playoff contention as well.
exactly. So this week, very pivotal. Um, but then even I feel like after even this week, there's still going to be a good like maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 teams that are just shuffling for the last couple spots into the playoffs.
Absolutely. It's going to be very close. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and speaking of, somehow we've managed to not eliminate anybody. Though there is a couple teams that are functionally eliminated, and there's a couple teams that might be functionally guaranteed. But
Yeah.
because we need some very specific circumstances for them to even be contenders. But it's possible that they could technically make it if there's every deviation at this point makes it more and more unlikely that some of these teams will make it.
Anything's possible.
Yep. But I don't think this is going to be in the realm of possibility here. But, you know, we'll see. Um, so I believe we have a match that we do want to go over this week. We'll only go over one. But, there was one that was pretty interesting that we had going. And, Justin, why don't you introduce us to our one match this week?
Well, we had a pretty large upset. We had Coach Alex leading his Colorado Avalon to an upset win over Coach Kyler's Six Dittos. Um, Once again, we've said it before, and we keep harking on it because losing all 8 games in a season
It's
is
impressive.
truly a feat, a Herculean effort from Coach Alex last year. Um,
Especially
and to
coming
see,
off of an all rightish season of 3-5. Um,
and that was his rookie year,
it
correct?
was his rookie year, so
Yeah. And so gets that sophomore slump last year, and then decides that you know they sell the team to a new owner. The Skibbity Squad gets a rebranding to the Colorado Avalanche. Uh, a couple of similar faces, like Kilowattrel. I know Coach Alex is a big fan of, but otherwise completely new look and seems to be a completely new coach. He's been playing a lot better this season, still making some of those same mistakes um, that we've been seeing, but for all intents and purposes, he's one 95% accurate move from being 4-2 and firmly in the playoff race here. And this win over Coach Kyler was just a great performance by him, and proves that last season will not define his team this year.
absolutely. And speaking of inaccurate moves, this game was defined by them.
Mm.
As in fact, 95% accurate moves is a missed play rough from Coach Kyler. Absolutely put him in a very powerful position throughout the game. On top of that, he also missed a game-winning with close combat on Hydreigon towards the end of the game due to the ability Hustle. So, I mean, you take some, you get some misses, you get missed a bit.
Yeah.
So, Coach Alex, even in the scales a little bit this week, I think. On the other side of things, Coach Kyler should have won this game. This was a good time for him to hit playoffs. This is probably one of his easier matches for the rest of the season, and him not making it, maybe it's going to be a little tougher for him to sneak his way in there.
Absolutely, and we just got done talking about over the past couple weeks. He's on this 3-game winning streak where he went +9 in the 3 games leading up to this, and then all of a sudden, he loses that momentum. I really, truly thought there was a world where he would win out the rest of his games and only have 1 loss in the regular season.
Yeah, but didn't end up being the case, and now we're here. So.
Yep.
But otherwise, that's mostly what we have for this last week of games. We got to see that Hunter managed to hang on there with win 2-0 over Jacob, and Caden ending up crushing Titus 5-0, which was quite an impressive performance.
Yeah,
and lots of just different ways that we've basically come to see this standings picture, where not a single team is more than 2 games ahead of the others in the thing, and only one team is guaranteed to be above another team by the end of the season, and that is the Phoenix Ferrets will 100% of the time be ahead of the Planet of Annihilapes by the end of the season. Even if Phoenix Ferrets lose by 6 both times, they will at least be 1 seed ahead of Planet of Annihilapes. So that is incredibly close.
But yeah, it's a headache to look at, truly. I mean, I guess we could just dive right in here. We have the top 6 teams all at 4-2. Wide variation though in that point differential, which we have talked about, going to be very important here coming down the season.
Absolutely. It's even if these teams end up losing every game, especially the top 2 there with the Driftveil Rangers and the Phoenix Ferrets, it's going to be difficult for them to miss playoffs just because of how good that differential really is for them. Mm-hmm. And 4-4 for a lot of teams isn't even possible to beat. So, a 4-4 record will likely potentially get you into playoffs, but it's going to be a positive differential that's really going to make the difference.
Definitely. And I mean, you look at this and there's a 14 point differential between your own Phoenix Ferrets and my Los Angeles Charger Bugs, but we're at the same record. So that just shows how important each individual game is. And coming out of this 4-2 bracket, the 2 teams that are at +8 tied for that 3rd seed, Coach David and Coach Aiden facing off this week.
Absolutely. We'll see one of them make playoffs out of this. So
exactly, and so one of them is for sure going to punch their ticket, and we'll get into that game a little bit later after we look at the rest of these standings. But definitely the game to watch out for this week.
Absolutely, and when we look at these standings, we see a lot of teams have their chance again to punch their way into the playoffs this week, and a lot of teams have their chance to keep them out of it and keep themselves in the race. Phoenix Ferrets will end up facing off this week against the Milwaukee Milk Tanks at 3-3, and it's going to be a big game. We will end up make the playoffs by even just having a good enough differential in this game. I think will be enough to potentially punch the ticket, and a win will absolutely secure a playoff position. Same for the Driftveil Rangers. They end up playing the
Field Team 6.
Field Team 6 at 2-4, where not only can Caden make his way into the playoffs, he can also eliminate it's Field Team 6 all in one fell swoop. So a lot of playoff decisions are going to be made very quickly. Whereas if Jacob wins, nothing changes. So David goes up against Aiden. These are important matches that'll shape what's going on. 6 dittos. The Orlando Magic are who they'll be facing off against. Again, another game where one of them will make playoffs and the other one will be eliminated if should Coach Kyler win. And even your own Los Angeles Charger Bugs, you're playing this week. It's the Arcaniners, right?
Correct.
And he has a low enough differential that it might a win for you not only secures your playoff position, probably takes the Arcaniners out of it right then and there. So, we're looking at a lot of potential playoff decisions here, all at once. So week 7, gonna be where we get a lot of playoff information.
Yeah, and I mean something that's just super fascinating to look at. There is, we are 6 games in. At this point, there is 7 total possible records you could have. Ranging from 0-6 all the way up to 6-0. And yet, you look at the leaderboards, or you look at these standings.
There's 3 of them.
There's only 3. And it just shows how even this league has been and just how crazy. Any upset still feels possible. There's not many upsets where you're like, it's like, I wasn't expecting that. But at this point, it's almost come to be expected. And I think it's going to be very exciting. I hope this energy carries over into the playoffs, where even though you might have the higher seed, you're not safe because you're only 1 game. Hell, you might even have the same record as the person that you're facing off against, just a different point differential. So the gap is narrowing on this skill balancing, and so I think there's going to be a lot of close games.
It's technically possible for this league to only have 1 team that hits 5-3 by the end of the season, which is kind of insane. So yeah, we'll see what goes down in the remaining games here, but hopefully we get to see. I hope we see some playoff clinches this week. It would be quite shocking if we didn't, and there's a lot of opportunities.
Absolutely. And just the last thing I want to talk about is the strength of schedule coming down the pipeline, because you look at my team, Los Angeles Charger Bugs, and we face off against Coach Ethan and the San Francisco Arcaniners, and then Coach Zach and the Miami Palafins, right? And then you have a team like the Dallas Steel Wings, coached by Coach David, who coming down here, they have this week the Houston Haunters and Coach Aiden with that just monster roster, and then the sometimes inconsistent but veteran and still a powerhouse Why Not Us and Coach Titus. So David is far from being safe coming into the last couple of games here. It's just really interesting how important this schedule is shaping up.
Absolutely, and anybody who pick a win off is going to be very very happy with the results. Those 3-3 teams are going to need to really make sure that their wins count. They need a lot of differential, and they need to make their games either as close or as lopsided as possible in their favor. So, those points are going to come down to it, and I think we'll see a couple of teams get eliminated by it. So, I think teams might get their comebacks squashed even by it if they win out for the rest of the season at 2-4. They might not have the point differential to make the difference. So, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, after that, we do have our MVP race for this week. Now, it looks a little odd. I won't say. Things are moving around rapidly.
Yeah.
But Baxcalibur, I believe, is back at the top.
Yeah.
Tied with Halucha, Gouging Fire. Then we got Comfei, King Gambit, Chien Pao, Heatran, Terapagos, Hydreigon, and then Urshifu Rapid Strike. I don't think this is how we envisioned this to end up looking at
Definitely
all.
not. Definitely not.
this is where we're at. I think one of the more interesting ones is that Gouging Fire and Comfey have had a similar story to get here, where they've gotten a ton of their kills all in like 2 games.
Yeah.
Also Halucha as well. So 3 of the top 4 Pokemon? 3 of the top 4 Pokemon, 4 or 5, I don't remember, are all basically just 2 sweeps to get in. So, I mean, any Pokemon can really take the top of this by that logic in these last couple games. Comfey is a new addition to this. It had a great week last week for Coach Caden. Being a huge reason why he took the win against, Coach Titus. So
Yeah. I think it is interesting when you're looking at these MVP stats to look at the amount of games that they've actually played in. Coach David was taking a lot of heat, no pun intended, for not bringing Gouging Fire more. But he seemed to have found a place in the roster, in the rotation for him, and has found out how to use him very effectively to get a lot of very important, very powerful kills. And if you look down a little bit, Skeledirge, not a name we're hearing a lot of, only been brought in 3 of Coach Kyler's games, but is 6-1, +5 in those games. I think that could be, as a Terra captain especially, that could be a very important roster piece for him. I think it could help him elevate to the playoffs if he's able to use him more effectively and in more games down the stretch.
absolutely. And speaking of Coach Kyler, I think there's another Mon that needs to be remembered from his team that also has 6 kills. Greninja, I feel like he had him down earlier in the season, and then he seems to have kind of, I don't want to say forgot, but kind of taken the back seat. Whereas when he was fully utilizing him, it seemed like it was working a little better. So, I think Coach Kyler should go back to that strategy where he really allows Greninja to cook and take over some games that way.
One of the most, one of just the fundamental sweepers in the league. If you're able to get him off to the races, almost nothing can stop him, and I think he can easily take over a lot of games.
Absolutely, and I think that might be something that he needs to get back to. So we'll see how that goes. Any other Pokemon you'd like to bring up there, Justin, before we move on?
I guess I've been harping on this all season, but I'm telling you, that Urshifu Rapid Strike, he's impressing me. I mean, I think he's impressing a lot of people around the league. Seen as kind of a lesser version of Single Strike, but Coach Caden, despite his, lapse or his, weakness as a coach, some would say, Urshifu Rapid Strike able to really excel and exceed, and playing to prove that there's a reason why he was such a high pick and why he's such a great Terra captain. And I'm super excited to see if Coach Kane is able to actually get his team to the playoffs, what he's able to do on that big of a stage.
Mm-hmm. I will say that Rapid Strike has not gotten a kill in a little while. It has been a little tough over the last, I think, 3 weeks. He's been completely without kills. Let me verify that real quick. Yeah, he has not gotten a single kill in the last 3 weeks. So it is a little tough for Rapid Strike right now. He's kind of stagnated since week 4. But, it's clear that he's been a pretty powerful Pokemon throughout his time in, this season. And, Single Strike, though, he's not that far behind. He's 7-3 +4, only 1 additional death. So, I predict that by the end of the season, Single Strike will have passed Rapid Strike, even with the Terra. So.
And with, looking at the coaches there, that wouldn't shock me.
Absolutely, and on that team too, Single Strike is just amplified to, I think, like the 10th degree.
Absolutely.
So we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, let's go ahead and move on to our matches next week. We have Vincent versus Zach, me versus Josh, you versus Ethan, Aiden versus David, Kyler versus Chris, Titus versus Roman, Hunter versus Alex, and Jacob versus Caden. Lots to go over this week, and a lot of potential playoff implications this week, as we've mentioned.
Absolutely.
Earlier.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. Not a lot of like close seeds. There's actually a lot of top seeds taking on lower seeds, which, like we said, is very important for elimination and stamping your spot in the playoffs. But one game that we hinted at earlier, of course, is the Dallas Steel Wings heading on a plane, or I guess on a bus, not that far away, down the 35 to Houston to face off against the Haunters, coached by Aiden. We've talked about it all season, even in the preseason. This roster is a problem that Coach Aiden has. It is
incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
It's incredibly powerful, and we will see if Coach David has an answer. However, I don't think Gouging Fire works into this matchup. I think it's going to be really tough to make it work. I think Zarude is tough to make work into this matchup. It's a tough scene here for David, but it's important for him to win because tied records and punching the playoff ticket, especially with a tough final matchup as well for David with Titus. This is one of his last two chances to really ensure that it doesn't come down to differential for him.
Definitely. You don't want the last game of the season, playoffs on the line, to be against Coach Titus. That is not what you want. So, this game, it is imperative that David, obviously, winning the game would be amazing. Stamps his spot in the playoffs. But at the very least,
losing by very little would also be just
exactly. He has to keep it close if he's going to lose. If this is one of those games where, Coach David's been known to spiral off, even though he's been looking phenomenal the past 4 weeks. If this is one of those games where it's like a 4 or a 5 point loss, that puts him in a very tough spot. That's not a place you want to be heading into the last.
Absolutely, but it would put Aiden into a playoff position immediately.
Yes.
Who has a little bit easier of a time, I think, in week 8, if I'm not mistaken. So, it's both these teams really want to win this game.
Yeah.
But, I think my money's personally on Coach David. It's just end of the season things for him.
Absolutely.
It happens every year. So, but hopefully, I'm hoping to see an upset because it would be a lot more fun. But
I definitely think, like you said, Gouging Fire is going to be hard to make work. Same with Zarude. I think
Gallade might have to take the top spot here this week.
I think Gallade is going to be his focus. I think that's how you win this game. If Gallade is able to take down 2 of these Pokemon, ship a couple more, then that puts Coach David in a fantastic spot.
Yeah, on top of that, I think potentially maybe it's a bundle week. I think Pecharunt against David looks disgusting. I don't really know how David deals with it in a reasonable manner because, maybe it's like, because not only does the poison deal with like Gouging Fire, Mega Gallade, and Zarude very well, but it's also a ground poison to deal with Glamora. Exactly. So it is just
and that toxic debris strategy. David's been not shy of letting the league know he's leaning hard into that, as he should. It's a very, very strong ability, but like you said, Pecharunt able to just shut that down before you even get started.
Absolutely, and on top of that, most of his Pokemon don't even hit the ground. Latios is in the air. Ferrothorn is Steel type, so it won't get poisoned. Togekiss in the air, and I believe there's Swellow is also in the air. And on top of that, Pecharunt will absorb the toxic spikes. So
and then he could Terra Flying Mammal Swine if he wants, or something, or
Absolutely.
Terra Steel, something like that.
He's known to have been running boots on Volcanion as well, so
Yep.
that might not even take the toxic damage. It's tough out here to make Glamora work, and if it comes, it'll have to be an offensive set, I think, to make it
Exactly.
usable.
But then the issue becomes, you don't want to get, if toxic debris is not going to work, and setting all these hazards isn't going to work. You don't want to get into a boxing match against this team. It's too powerful. So David's going to have to figure out some creative strategies in order to give himself a leg up.
Absolutely, it's gonna be tough out here. This team is like very, very strong, and I mean, Coach David has a great team himself. Don't get me wrong,
Yep.
but this team is just it's on another level, and David's gonna have to really pull out all the stops in his gameplay to really ensure that he wins this match, no matter what he brings.
Yep.
And I believe that's almost all we have for this week. There's a couple of other games that are pretty interesting this week. A lot of the teams can punch their way into the playoffs. We'll have one guaranteed team in the playoffs next week, at least. If nothing else happens, we will at least have one team guaranteed to make playoffs. We'll probably have at least one team eliminated. And, we'll have a lot more playoffs information for you next week. So, Justin, I believe that's all we have.
I think so.
Yeah. So we'll come back next week with all the new playoff information, probably a beginning of a bracket, and maybe we'll even have a full bracket with how this league is going. So, yeah, we will see you next time. Good luck in your
Thank you, guys.
week 6 or week 7, and yeah, bye.
But